So today we're going to be looking at our Unit 12 conversions, and in this case we're looking at our customary system, and I'm just going to go over a couple things to help us along the way. So I'm going to be looking at this at the top, your second one over. It says Miguel lives 7 1/8 miles away from Brian. I'll go ahead and circle that number, 7 1/8, and the unit of measurement, miles. Select all the distance measurements that could represent the distance between their houses. Now I underline this so I make sure that when I'm done that I have actually tackled the question that it's asking. So first of all, I noticed that there's only one number, so clearly I'm not performing any operation. I'm only going to represent the distance between their houses, which is 7 1/8 mile. Another thing that I'm going to notice is my answer choices, the units that I have available. I need to convert over to yards, feet, inches, and the rest are in those formats as well. So I'm going to look at what I do know. Just slide this over to the side to come back to it. I have my numbers that is circled was 7 1/8. So I have 7 1/8 miles, and I'm going to convert it over. Now, when I convert it over, I want to think what is the next largest unit, the easiest step down, and again, it needs to be in terms of either yards, feet, or inches. So I'm going to pull out my beautiful reference sheet, which I will have available when I'm doing the FSA testing, and I'm going to find my unit of measurement. So I'm in miles, and I can go from miles to yards or miles to feet. What I notice is that the largest unit is at the bottom, so largest all the way up to the smallest. The next best unit to go to is my yards. So I'm going to need to multiply the 7 1/8 miles between their two houses by 1,760 yards in each mile. So 1 mile, I'm going to go to yards, and 1 mile is equivalent to 1,760 yards. So there's a key factor here that I have to remember. I cannot leave out that fraction. So in order to make sure that I do not leave it out, I'm going to go ahead and do the fraction first. I'm going to be multiplying 1,760 yards, and I need 1/8 of that. I need 1/8 of 1,760. I also need to do my whole number. So I've done my 1/8. I also am going to need to do 1,760 yards per mile, so times 7 miles. And I'm going to go ahead and work these out. I'm going to start with this one. I don't know what 1/8 of 1,760 is, and so since I don't know that, I'm going to kind of divide. I'm going to do the reciprocal, so I'm going to change this into division, and the reciprocal of 1/8 is 8 over 1, or 8 whole. So I'm just basically going to divide this by 8. So I'm going to slide my little work over here, and I'm going to write it out, 1,760. And I'm dividing it into 1/8 pieces, so I'm taking that and dividing it into 8 pieces. So how many times can 8 go into 17? Well, if I know my multiples for 8, I have 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, and I'm going to go ahead and stop there because I know I'm not going to go any higher than that based on my digits. But I want to think again, how many times can 8 go into 17? And as I'm going down, I see that it can only go in 2 times. So 2 times 8 is 16. Now when I subtract that, I'm going to have 1 left over, and that was in my hundreds place, so now I need to move on to my tens. I need to regroup that 1 into my tens. Now I have 16 tens. So again, how many times can 8 go into 16? And it can go in 2 times. And again, 2 times 8 is 16, so that comes out nice and even. I don't have anything left over. However, I have not yet represented my ones place, so I need to drop down that 0. And I know that 0 can go into 8 0 times, so I must represent this digit. I'm going to put a 0 there in its place. So that is only a piece of it. Again, that's only 1/8 of 1,760. So that piece I've only accounted for my fraction. So I'm going to come over here. This is equivalent to 200 And now I'm going to take those 7 whole miles and multiply those 7 whole miles by 1,760 yards in each mile. So again, I'm just going to move over to the sides. I have plenty of room to work it out. 1,760 times 7. So 7 times 0 is 0. 7 times 6 is 42. I'm going to go ahead and regroup my 4 because it was in my tens place. 7 times 7 is 49, but plus 3 more, 50, 51, 52. Oh, 53, I forgot. Sorry. 3, carry my 5. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 5 more is going to get me to my 12. So when I multiply this together, I got 12,320. So what I need to do now is I need to take the 1/8 of a mile plus my 7 miles and join them together. And the best way for me to do that is to actually take it and rewrite it vertically. And since I already have this one here, I'm just going to take this and just rewrite it right underneath, making sure that my place value digits are all lined up. So again, 0 plus 0, and I like to put a line through it to make sure that I'm keeping my place values together. So 0 plus 0 is 0. 2 plus 2 is 4. 3 plus 2 is 5. And then clearly I can just drop down my 12. So I took and converted the 7 by multiplying by 1,760 yards per mile. And then the 1/8 of, well, I know that I'm cutting it into 8 pieces. So I divided by 8. So now that I've joined those together, I can look at my answer choices and see, do I have an answer choice that will match? Because I converted 2 yards, do I have an answer choice that's going to match 12,540 yards? So when I get over here and I'm looking at my answer choices, I do notice that A works for that. It does come out to 12,540 yards. But again, notice that this is a select all, so I'm going to need to go through all my conversions. I went through yards, so I could go ahead now and cross out E, because this is the answer for yards, then this one cannot work. And be careful, there is some distractor, so you just have to make sure. This distractor was if you forgot to add in that fraction piece of 220. So now I'm going to just kind of move up my conversion sheet. I know I'm at yards, and I need to kind of go to my next step. So it's either going to be feet or inches. And as I told you, you're going to want to go from the biggest and just kind of go up to the smallest. So this has feet, but that's 1 mile, and I'm not in miles, I'm in yards. So that's not the one I want to use. But this is yards. So if I have 1 yard, there are 3 feet in each. But I don't have 1 yard, I have 12,540. And I'm going to multiply it by 3 feet in each yard. When I multiply that, 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 4, let me just adjust the camera, sorry. 3 times 4 is 12, so I'm going to drop my 2 and regroup my 1. 3 times 15, 3 times 5 is 15, but plus your 1 more is 16. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 more is 7, and then 3 times 1 is 3. So 37,620, and again, I went from yards, and I multiplied that by 3 feet in each yard, so now I am in feet. And I'm going to again look at my my question sheet and see, do I match 37,620? And I do notice that I match that if I'm looking at D. D has that number right there in terms of feet. And so I can only have one word that works. So B is going to get crossed out. And again, B will also be your distractor if you'd never accounted for that 1/8 of a mile. So the only unit of measurement that I have left to even look at is my inches. So I'm in feet, and again, I'm going to go back to my reference sheet and see how many inches are in a foot. Well, I can see right there that 1 foot equals 12 inches, and I have 37,620 feet. So I'm going to take that and multiply it by 12 inches in each foot. Give you a moment to catch up. And make sure I got my camera good. Okay, so 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 6 is 12, so I'm going to drop my 2 and regroup my 1 for my tens. 2 times 7 is 14, but plus that 1 is 15. Regroup my 1. 2 times 3 is 6, plus my 1 is 7. Now this is only the first partial product, so I now need to move into my tens place. So since this is not actually 1, it's 10, I'm going to drop my 0, representing them in my tens place. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 2 is 2, 1 times 6 is 6, 1 times 7 is 7, 1 times 3 is 3. And I just went through that very fluently because obviously we can all multiply by 1. Again, I'm just going to join them together. I have a 0, 4, a 4, and 5 plus 6 is 11, so I'm going to have to drop a 1 and regroup. 7 plus 7 is 14, but plus that 1 more is going to give me 15. And regroup again. So now I'm going to go over 3, and I know that I'm in my next period. So I should have 451,446. Let me go back and just make sure I have something